Blog Talk Radio.
Calling all wild women.
Saludos, mi gente, ¿cómo estás? En esta mañana, transmitiendo en vivo desde Williamsburg, Brooklyn, you're listening to Cafecito Break Monday mornings with Rosangel, Perez, and Ruthie Guten. This is your host, La Shamanessa, Rosangel. Today is Monday, March 17th, 2014. My beautiful co-host, Ruthie, is off today. A beautiful shout-out to my love. Cafecito Break is a show produced by the Perez sisters NYC, donde hablamos de todo un poco, a little bit of everything. In this space, we chat about love, relationships, spirituality, ancient wisdom, truths, health, pleasure, and more. We at Cafecito Break are a small group of awakening women co-creating and envisioning a world with abundance, health, love, joy, pleasure, prosperity, for the most benevolent outcome for all. Welcome, my dear Cafecito Breakers. We have such a special show today. It is amazing to be with you once again. Really good mornings. I am feeling really rested, well rested. I had such a fabulous evening last night. I was a part of a goddess panel. It was called the Pleasure Research Panel with my beautiful goddess sister, Kiela Mellott, who is actually our guest today on the show. So I am so delighted to have her with us today and introducing her to the Monday morning crowd of Cafecito Break. This woman is one of my beautiful sisters. I love her so much, and I admire her candidness, her uninhibited expression, unabashed expression. She is a woman who is saying yes to pleasure and encouraging a pleasure revolution. And we are going to talk about that a little bit more with her. So let me tell you a little bit more about my beautiful goddess, Kiela Mellott. As I mentioned, she is a pleasure coach. Kiela is a certified life and pleasure coach, professional performer, a chanteuse, actress, dancer, writer, and playwright, choreographer, and director, as well as the producer and founder of Kiela's Cabaret and Pleasure Your World. She wrote, produced, and performed her one-woman show, How to Get Into My Pants, based on her life as a spiritual girl in a material world, awakening sexually and learning to balance the sacred and the sexual. And she is starting a production on her newest play, Confessions of an Angelic Whore. As a certified pleasure coach, researcher, revolutionary goddess, and all-around Renaissance woman, she successfully coaches her students and clients to live a life they imagine in their pleasure, passion, and purpose, penetrating the resistance, one pleasurable step at a time, through her 7-piece philosophy coaching. I love it. Let's just bring this beautiful goddess on. Kiela, how are you, goddess? How are you feeling this morning?
I feel great. It's so lovely to be introduced by you like that. I was like, who's that amazing woman? I want to meet her.
What?
Oh, it's me. That's awesome.
It's your mirror being reflected back at you. Isn't that awesome? It's amazing what happens when you hear someone else read a bio, right? Like, it's like I did that. Like, sometimes I think it's important for us to kind of take a step back and say, I did that. I've done all that. I'm doing all that. Because that's part of, like...
especially the way you read it. You know, you have this beautiful womb-like energy just reading it, and I was like, wow, I want to be in there. And I was like, oh, she's talking about me. It's beautiful. Thank you for reading it for me. Thank you for mirroring that. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, Kiela, it is a pleasure. I love you very much, and I admire and respect the work that you do, and I love that you call yourself a pleasure coach, because it's always, when I think about you, that's the first word that comes to mind: pleasure, 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 pleasure. And yesterday I briefly told you about what Monday mornings and why we named the show Monday Mornings, and it's because Monday mornings has become statistically one of the most unpleasurable points in the week for people, where people experience they peak the highest in their stress levels on Monday mornings, and unfortunately, the highest amount of heart attacks occur on Monday mornings. And we ask ourselves why. What's happening on Monday mornings? Most people are getting ready to go to work. At the same token, this is, God bless you, sweetheart. So this is why, we're here in the morning saying that we want to bring more pleasure. We want to bring more feel good to the Monday morning experience, because it is such a stressful time for so many people. And so this is why I value the work that you do, because you're going out there and you're being candid about our need to live a more pleasurable life. And if you could share with our listeners how you came to that understanding that this is something that you wanted to take on, like, no, I want to live a life of pleasure, and I want to encourage other people to do the same.
Yeah. Well, I just want to remind you, I'm still getting over this head cold, so I will be coughing and sneezing on occasion, but I am in my pleasure, so please don't mind me if I do that. Wow, how did I get into this? Okay, several years ago, I came up with the name Pleasure Your World, and I thought that was going to be my blog. But to be honest, I was still going through my own journey, and I was, my call waiting's trying to come in, interesting. I always like to see when I'm doing something like this, who's trying to reach me, who's feeling through the ethers what I'm up to. I think it's my student loan, so that's definitely, I don't know what that's about. But anyway, I wanted to call it Pleasure Your World, and I was still feeling a little too repressed and challenged to bring my self-permission to live in my pleasure. And so I just hung on to that title for a long time and didn't really do anything with it. And then I took Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts in 2008, and then again in 2010 I did it twice. And the first time, when she just mentioned the word pleasure, it just lined up in me. I said, oh my gosh, that's it. That's the thing. I don't even remember quite how how it went through me, but it just lined up. I was like, that's what I'm passionate about. That's what's important to me. And I feel like because a lot of us are told that pleasure is selfish or only sexual and bad, or that it's demonized so much that it's hard to accept and embrace the word pleasure. It's getting easier. I'm definitely out there as a pleasure revolutionary sharing that, and people are always lit up at our events. I mean, last night you saw the look on people's faces after discussing pleasure on the panel, everything from sexuality to living a well-pleasured life. So, I usually answer this question differently. I talk about going through my whole journey and my whole background, but right now the answer is, I realized in my mid-30s that that's the piece that was missing, and then I saw how it was missing so much for so many people that I literally became a pleasure revolutionary and researcher and pioneer, and felt compelled to share my story in public. If you want, I can explain more of like my history with leading up to that and all that, but that's what I saw. If
you can share, yes, because we definitely have an audience who can connect to this and relate. I mean, your story is a mirror of many other women's stories, and
yes.
You're out there doing something very revolutionary, which is why I'm really excited that you're sharing the space with us this morning.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. It's been a fun 3 days because I was interviewed on Saturday, and then we did the pleasure research panel last night, and then I woke up to interview again today, and so I'm also very grateful because I know that Spirit is really guiding me in this revolution, and the more that I surrender me, Kiela, having to know anything about it, and just allow, this flow, put out there what comes through me, what's being asked to be put out there, and then say yes to what comes from that. It's a beautiful thing. I grew up very Christian, which, Christianity I think is a beautiful thing. What people do to Christianity and the Christian principles I don't find as beautiful, and I knew that I knew Spirit, and I knew Jesus, and I knew connection, and I knew Source and God, and what I used to call the knowing when I was little. But what I was being told Jesus was, and what I was being told, church and God was, really rubbed me the wrong way. It always did. It didn't sit well with me. It felt very hypocritical and polarized and fragmented, and contributing to the epidemic that I feel is on the planet right now of sacred versus sexual, spiritual versus material, masculine versus feminine. That's not what I'm passionate about. As you know, I'm passionate about opening the box and freeing the lines between the sacred and the sexual, the spiritual and the material, masculine and feminine, and pleasure and resistance. And a lot of that comes from growing up in a strict religious household that there was love there, but it was such confusion around being in your pleasure in any way possible. And I know when I got to 17, I really wanted to express myself. I felt very sensual. I busted out. I was curvy and 5'8", and delicious sexual energy coming through, and I had all kinds of opportunity to experiment and explore sensually and sexually, and I shut it down because I was so terrified, and I just tried to be a good girl. And I would definitely play and explore, at least with the sacred sexuality, with my lovers, but it was very few and far between, and very monogamous, and very, and the good thing is that my little angelic whore, the part of me that really wanted to explore sexually, would play with my partners, but I didn't feel like I had permission to share that, speak of it, or step outside of the box, outside of being with a partner. And I knew that was kind of wearing on me, but I didn't really deal with it. And then a lot of my 20s, I honestly I was doing some amazing things because I was performing and I was showing up, but I was, to be honest, Rosangel, I was really repressed, and I was depressed, and I was scared, and it was starting to really weigh down on me because I was very spiritually open for my, since I was born, since I got here, very spiritually open, and I was very sensitive and also sensual and sexual, and I didn't feel like I had permission, so I was showing up with a smile on my face, but I was breaking down inside. And also, I also had a very hard childhood. My mom was very emotionally unstable and very conflicted, and so I didn't get a really healthy role model either. And then my parents broke up when I was 14, so I was basically raising myself after 14 with all this powerful, intuitive, sensual energy, and it's like, what on earth do you do with that when you're not being guided or mentored? And then in my early 30s, I had a Kundalini Awakening simply by just going to yoga and chanting Sanskrit. And basically, I like to say living a Los Angeles lifestyle, just trying on spirituality, and boom. I mean, it was really huge. And at the time, excuse me, not even my yoga instructor knew what it was, and everybody looked at me like I was weird, so I didn't know what to do with it, and I couldn't stop it. So I tried to stop it, and what happened was it short-circuited my entire system, and my nervous system, and I got a twitch and a stutter and all kinds of motor symptoms that also affected my psyche. Kundalini tries to enlighten and awaken any repressed part of you. And my lowest common denominator was my psyche. I could not crack that open. I was too terrified. All the things I went through with my mother and good and bad and, hanging in there a certain way. And so basically most of my 30s, I really started to break down, and I stopped performing, and it was very hard for me to literally function. I had chronic fatigue, and I had all kinds of issues, which, intuitively I knew I was being divinely guided. I knew that it was spiritual. I knew it wasn't medical. I knew there was some kind of a block, something was happening. But it took me quite a few years of showing up every day for myself and for God and for the planet, and just knowing that somehow I was going to get through this and it was going to make more sense. And there were definitely days I felt like I was going insane. And I do feel like a lot of people who are in mental institutions or who are diagnosed with mental disorders are really going through Kundalini Awakening. They're having a psychosexual, spiritual Kundalini experience, and nobody has a definition or understanding of that. Most people don't, especially in the Western world. So they're being medicated and all kinds of things are happening. So I went through a lot, and then in my mid-30s, I started to awaken more sexually, and I was having really powerful experiences, things I couldn't find in books. And, I went to Mama Gina's. That helped somewhat in terms of just connecting me more to my sexuality and being an empowered woman. And then one day, 3 years ago, someone said, "Oh, you're having a Kundalini Awakening." And I was like, "Oh, that's what's happening. Oh, my God, that's so great." And then, wait, was it 3 years ago that he told me that? Yeah, and then shortly thereafter, I did the first version of my one-woman show because at that point, somehow my energy opened up again, and I felt strong enough to put on a show. And I just remember saying to myself, I put it together in 2 months, and I remember saying to myself, I'm actually to Spirit, I was like, I'm going to go for this, and you tell me if it's too much, I can just cancel. And every day I would work towards it. And then it was wonderful. It was my 40th birthday, and it was a Sunday night at 10:30, and we sold out the place. There were 70 people, 6 days before Christmas, and I did How to Get Into My Pants for the first time, which was a 20-minute version at the time, but now it's an hour and 15 minutes. And I told my story about, now that everything is a psychosexual, spiritual Kundalini awakening, how does one currently get into my pants? And from there, people asked me, excited, do you teach this? Can you coach me? Could you recommend a book? And I think 2 years before that, I had done the life coach training because I wanted to learn to self-coach because all this was so hard and so challenging. And I didn't, at the time, I couldn't afford a coach for myself. So I said, okay, fine. I'm going to get a scholarship to this coaching problem. There was a problem. It was a problem. So that's so cool. And this coaching program and learn to self-coach. And then I saw how brilliant I was at coaching, that all these gifts that I have, as a great actress or a sensitive human being or sensual or sexual, good and bad, what have you, is because I can see people, I can feel people, I know, I just see. And so being able to use that gift with people who ask me, hey, what do you see? Can you help me? Can you guide me? And then I realized that I'm a pleasure coach, not just a life coach, that I am impassioned and passionate about helping people live in their pleasure, passion, and purpose, as well as live in their vitality through their sacred sexuality, and finding Tantra and sexual Qigong and sacred sexuality and techniques and tools that my body was naturally doing, but being able to put a name to it and use my own intuition and my own divine downloads to guide other people to open to their energy has been highly rewarding. And so through coaching and through theater, where I get to educate and enlighten through entertainment, it has been my vehicle. But I will say, as you know, it's a vulnerable place still to be out there on the forefront and saying things that, you're not necessarily supposed to say. A beautiful, angelic, good girl doesn't say, I don't know what we can say on your radio show here. So, but maybe she doesn't talk about genitalia, on stage or what have you. But I do, and I talk about it in the most loving way. And I'm always surprised by myself. I'm like, okay, here we go. Now I'm going to share that personal story. Or, okay, I guess that's what I'm doing on stage. Or, and, you know, I'm still wrestling my own, you know, demons with, you know, literally like the religion, like, will God love me if I do this? And the irony is, that's why I'm doing it. I feel naturally guided, and I do know that my body is a gift from God, Goddess, Source, and that I came here to use it. And part of sexual tantra is using the body in the material world to connect to spirituality. That's what it's there for. It's a gift. They're not separate. So that's sort of where I'm at right now, and I'm excited to actually see where the next several years take me.
Well, you know, I'm excited for you, to see how to get into my pants again. Because
I know. I'm living the third act right now. I'm getting a lot of, you haven't done it in a year and a half, and I've been getting a lot of requests lately, and I'm really grateful that you said that, because I really felt like I had to shelve it. And, you know, it's kind of like a love affair. I miss it, but I don't miss it enough to get back together with it just yet, but it's calling to me. And so I'm kind of feeling into, is like, you know, just like a man, like, is this a man I need to revisit, and after I took some time we could have a better relationship, or do I need to upgrade to a different man? And that's sort of how I feel about my show. It's like it served a purpose. It was so beautiful. It really was funny and you know, poignant and playful and sexy. And what is the new version? And it's on the horizon, but I don't know exactly what it looks like yet. So that's kind of exciting. So thank you for saying that. It really inspires me to want to do more with it.
Well, I was one of those people in your audience that was impacted by watching you on stage, and I really appreciated how you found the courage to make this marketable on stage. You know what I'm saying? Because these are topics that usually you would go to the Open Center or ARE, and we would sit like in a row of chairs. But you brought it, the way you bring it in, it's like it feels more intimate. It felt like we were there with you, and I really loved it. Like, you do create that space, that sacred space on stage, and when you express yourself, you're so completely open, and you open up yourself in such a vulnerable way, which is why I appreciate what you do so much, because I you know, in this, my background as, you know, in production, for example, and you meet so many people in so many slices, and very few people I can say are on my list of completely and organic, authentic expression almost all the time. And I feel like when I see you, I feel like I get organic, authentic Kiela, no matter what Kiela is moving through, and that inspires me to be as organic and authentic in my expression and live it. And so you're living your pleasure, even if on some days it doesn't feel as pleasurable, but you're still moving towards it. And you are an inspiration. You're inspiration to women. And the show How to Get Into My Pants gave me words to define what was happening in me and my body, because similar to you, I experienced my Kundalini Awakening. I didn't know that was a Kundalini Awakening when I went off to Mexico and to just give myself an R&R. I had already been doing all this work spiritually, and I was chanting, and it's almost like everything came to a peak when I went on that retreat, and all of a sudden I come back and I feel like I'm in the same video game on another level, and I don't know how to connect with this new world. I didn't know how to speak to people. I've always been very extroverted, and all of a sudden this layer of a woman who didn't have words was coming through, and I would bump into I was still at MTV at the time, and being on MTV with a fresh Kundalini experience, I had no idea what was happening to me, to my body. I thought I was dying. Literally, I thought I was dying. I thought I was going to die. And that was catapulted me to like leave because I'm like, I think I might be dying here. I'm super fatigued. I don't know what's happening to my body. I must leave. And I know that I'm joking and laughing and smiling, but when you're living and going through this, it doesn't feel so good. You really believe that these things that are happening is really, oh my God. And so when here I am, like, I don't know, sometime later, and I'm in the audience watching your show, and you're giving me, you're adding pieces to my story.
Oh my gosh, Rosangel, I didn't know that. I'm so grateful that you're telling me.
Because I didn't know that. Yeah, I had heard the word Kundalini before. My first class was a Kundalini yoga class, which with actually one of the women who was Yogi Bhajan's healer. Like, so shout out to her. Like, I had a very beautiful introduction to yoga, but that word was not in my mind. I just knew that something was very different. And it was, and I didn't see the world, and I felt like I was connecting with everything and in a brand new way. And I felt so overly sensitive to light. I started feeling like just electricity to people's energies. I couldn't be in certain rooms. I felt like I needed to go into a cave. And essentially, I have, and in a way I have, because most people in my life since 2010 have seen very little of Rosangel. And so I'm happy that you're here with me today, because this is my official way of saying I have been going through this Kundalini experience. And it has been very hard because you're integrating, you need to go to places where you need to allow your body to move the energy in certain places. Sometimes it doesn't feel so good. And sometimes it's just really as easy as surrendering, but allowing yourself to get to that place of surrender, which is what we spoke about yesterday a lot in the panel, like what is important, and it's to show up every day for yourself. And so this is why, like, I see you, Kiela, and I appreciate that you see me and that you invite me to be a part of the special events that you do. So thank you very much, Goddess.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many things I want to say to what you just said. I want to thank you so much. I I had no idea that my show and the expression of what I was going through on stage like that, so vulnerably and authentically, was so spot on for you. I mean, I do love you very much, and I do consider us very close. We just haven't had a lot of time to actually sit and talk, and because we're both women out there doing what we're supposed to be doing, so getting together on the same day is so challenging. And I cancel clear. I'm not going to add that it's challenging anymore. It's going to happen very easily from now on, and so it is. But I didn't know that. That makes me so happy because, I never knew I was even going to talk about Kundalini when I created the show. I just missed performing, and I wanted to get back out there, and I thought, okay, this feels like a way to do it. And I also knew that it was part of my healing, that I just couldn't live with a secret anymore. I had to tell the story. And so are you saying that when did you find out of the Kundalini Awakening? Did my show help enlighten you about that's exactly what it was, or?
Well, I knew that it was an awakening. I didn't have the word being of Kundalini because I had heard it before, but it wasn't like I had dissected it and like, okay, what are the stages? So it was like another word. And then when you were filling in the gaps of the other experiences of what you and your body was experiencing, I'm like, oh my God, this woman's story mirrors mine so much, of like growing up in such a repressed and the at home, and the messages you're told regarding Christianity, like no, you must be this, girls should be like this, you need to be quiet, and how many times my expression was blocked. If I cried in front of Daddy, he would send me home. He couldn't handle his little girl crying. He would send me to my room. My mother couldn't handle my expressions either. It was too much. And so you grow up like afraid to sometimes even speak. And so when this expression and awakening started to happen, where there's this an energy that was coming up that was like, F this is my time. This is for me. I'm going to do for me. I'm going to honor me. I'm going to love me. I'm going to look at that mirror, and even if I don't love my reflection, I'm going to still say to that reflection, I love you, and I honor you. And I'm going to smile at her.
What I'm specifically asking, though, is I'm just so honored and thrilled to know that my show helped you put a name to the awakening you were having. So is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. Which is why I think that you should continue
I never
this
knew
show.
that, Rosangel.
Yes.
Because
this is why I think that you should do that show.
Somebody put, what did you say?
This is why I think that, that this show would be beneficial. I think that when you did that show, it was maybe like to a more private crowd, right? But I think right now, with all the mass awakenings that have happened since then, people are waking up. They're more ready. Like women are more ready to jump in, and I feel the vibe. Just there's a lot of that vibe coming up with the goddesses around me that I keep interacting with. Like we're just ready to say yes to pleasure. And
okay, yes. So I have a few things to say. So number one, I really want to thank you so very much for acknowledging me. When you first started responding a while ago, I don't remember what you said anymore because of the head cold, but there was a beautiful acknowledgement, and I really want to thank you for that. And then second of all, I'm so honored and touched that my show put a name to what you were experiencing, because that for me was just listening to my spirit and listening to my inner guidance and be having courage and being willing to show up vulnerably in my gift as a performer to tell my truth. And I remember being terrified that I was going to talk about Kundalini, because I kind of thought it was sort of like a secret that was kind of a bad thing, because it was so, I'd experienced people being so put off by my intensity that, I knew I was lovable. I knew it was a beautiful thing. I knew that they were just afraid of the energy, and also because I couldn't handle it at the time, that I didn't kind of blame them for thinking, what the hell's going on over there? But it was a very vulnerable place for me, and every time I did the show, people would just be smiling with their entire body and very well pleasured. And that always made me so happy. Sometimes I would just sort of be like a deer in headlights, but not in a bad way, just sort of like amazed by the response and sort of just open to it, but not quite knowing sort of what I was starting or what was hitting so well. Just kind of I've spent the last 3 years researching that and looking at it and seeing, oh, okay, people are hungry for this. They're thirsty for this. They want somebody to give them permission by going out there and being themselves and being an example for them. Like people, I think I said it last night to one of the women on the panel. She said, how do I start to show my community that that I am a sacred sexual woman and that I'm more in my pleasure without freaking any of them out? And I said, you just have to give yourself permission. And the truth is, they want you to show them. They might not act like they do, but everybody's really wanting other people to show up so that they can start to have permission. Pleasure begets more pleasure. And people use the term light workers a lot. I don't usually use that term because I do my best not to get caught up in, I think Fab mentioned it last night on the panel, kind of the new age words that get overused, Sometimes it can diminish their potency. But lately, I've rediscovered the word light worker, and I'm like, that's exactly what I am. I've had so much light trying to, burst through me since I got here, since I came out the womb, since I was in the womb, and I've spent the first half of my life trying to dim it to make people comfortable. And that was all in my psyche. That was like those 5 bodies I talked about, the psychological, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and what did I miss? Psychological, spiritual, emotional, physical. You can only move as fast as your lowest common denominator. So if one of those points is off, you're going to get short-circuited and you're going to have a lot of issues. So it's really a beautiful thing to allow this healing to come through, and other people are really asking for that. And so the planet itself, since 2012, I can just feel it. I don't study this stuff. When you get connected to Source and your Kundalini awakens, you will connect to the divine downloads. You know, we're computers, and that antivirus program gets short-circuited when you're not living a pure lifestyle, when you're going to work at MTV where the energy is not conducive to sacredness, when you're doing what I used to do, which was show up as a professional makeup artist at Bloomingdale's or Saks or, you know, even when I had my own business doing hair and makeup for brides, you know, the energy of those places, it was so chaotic, so intense. Most people, you know, you'd be surprised. I never met a bride who was in her pleasure once, not once the day of the wedding. Like, when you're doing things like this, you can't be open to the energy. And the other thing I can totally relate with you is that when you said you had the Kundalini and you go back to MTV and you're like, the world looks so different and you think you're going like insane. I call New York the concrete jungle, you know, crazy, beautiful concrete jungle. And although it's where I found my spirituality, it was very challenging to surrender to it in this city because there's just so much psychic information and energy coming at you. And you're absolutely right that all you really need is a safe place to unwind. So you have to create the money and the place that you can go to and stop so that the divine downloads and the divine intelligence that's in there, once the Kundalini awakens, can unwind and reveal itself. And so for a long time, because I was suffering so much, and it was really horrific for me, like it was huge. It wasn't just like an ease. Some people, especially a few people who've hung out with me, their Kundalini's awakened in my presence, which, you know, I'm sure you've experienced that too. Like that starts to happen as well because the planet, you know, we're all working together because it's pushing for this light to come through. And the more of us that are willing to really let the light completely come through us, a.k.a. light workers, all across the planet, you kind of picture it like a big globe, and there's all these little white dots of light, and the more that they're willing to ground into the earth and connect to the sky, they're these like pillars, these cylinders, if you will, and then the more of those that do it, then the light connects to those, and then you get this whole matrix and this grid of light, and then eventually when there's enough light, the planet can just shift into its pleasure. And I feel that pressure a lot of the time, and I have to remind myself that I'm not alone, you know, that I don't have to hold the pleasure gauntlet, that there's other people doing this consciously, like Ruthie and the other women on the panel, and other people that I know, admire, and respect. And it makes it, I'm getting to the point now where I'm getting more excited from a genuine place. My energy's getting back, I'm getting stronger, and I don't feel as freaked out. But it's really challenging to overcome that paradigm where the world has been telling people like us that who we are is not okay and that it's wrong, and you get caught up in the psyche of it instead of the spirituality and the energy of it. And when you get caught in the psyche, you get caught in your small self, which is the little personality that wants people to like them and wants to fit in and doesn't want the crowd to lynch them. But when you really start to connect with your spiritual practice, this is what's happening for me, and meditate and connect and just know it doesn't matter if I have friends or if I have the man of my dreams. What matters right now is that I stay connected to Source at all costs and trust that. Then you start to see a path paved for you that is unlike you've ever seen. And that's what's starting to happen for me. So these kinds of conversations and dialogues are so important and necessary. So I really want to thank you for inviting me to have this conversation today, because I know last night I said, what are we going to be talking about? And you had interviewed me once before, and you said, you know, sacred sexuality and pleasure. I said, oh, really? So basically the same thing? But this is not the same thing at all. This is a much deeper conversation between you and I about really what's going on. And I'm really grateful to be having this with you. Thank you.
Well, you know, we at Cafecito Break, one of the divine downloads, to borrow your beautiful words, that I have received with Cafecito Break is that this show is alive, and that whoever I bring in to have a conversation with, that it should be free-flowing, and that's the first intention, for it to be authentic, you know, organic, in-the-moment expression. And the intention is a feel-good show, but sometimes there are moments where we may not be in our pleasure, but we're still going to try our best. You know, we still set the intention. Maybe those days we say a prayer, you know, and we maybe meditate, or we speak we're in a more quieter space. But
You know what? Can I share my 7 P's now?
Oh, yes. Do so, please.
Because that feels really appropriate, because a couple times you've mentioned sort of like when you're in your pleasure and you're out of your pleasure kind of thing. And I kind of reframe it differently. I feel like there's more than enough opportunity to always be in your pleasure. And so the way I define it isn't, so I call it your divine, organic, orgasmic birthright, B''earth, right of pleasure. So if we can redefine what pleasure is, we can actually experience it a lot more. It doesn't, excuse me, it doesn't have to be good feelings or bad feelings. I'm in my pleasure, I'm out of my pleasure. What I've learned is I can experience, because that's what it was. You said I'm authentic, that you love, that's what your acknowledgement was. I remember now. And thankfully it's being recorded, because maybe I'll have time to go back and listen to your lovely, lovely presentation of me, reflection. And I'm laughing, too, because I feel like your reflection of me is my reflection of you. So, like, it's all good, you know. And then our reflection of each other is the reflection of the people listening. And then that ripple effect goes on and on. So let's see what I was saying. So pleasure, what I'm saying here is it's all good. So when you can realize that whatever you're experiencing is okay and necessary, and you were saying that, you know, whatever you get with Kiela, at least it's going to be authentic. You know it's Kiela. Like, so I used to suffer more because I would judge what I was feeling. Okay, it's so intense, or it's so emotional, or it's so this or so that. And then I started to practice my own practice called the 7 Ps. And I've discovered this because people would come up to me and say, how do you do what you do? What is it that you're doing? And I'd say, well, what is it that I'm doing? What are you seeing? And they said, you know, you walk into a room and you just radiate, or you know, you turn people on. There's something about you that, you know, it and whatever they would say would be something like that. And then my next question would be, well, you know, or I guess not my question. I would say, well, you know, I'm not sure. Let me feel into this. I'll tell you what. Why don't you just come hang out with me, and I know you'll feel it. And you know, at some point, I'm sure I'm going to be able to put words to it. And so that's what would happen. Is people would hang out with me, or somehow I would end up coaching them, or, you know, they'd help assist my show. And then I started mapping and tracking it. And at first it was the 3 Ps, and then it was the 5 Ps. Now it's the 7 Ps, and there's supplemental Ps. So the first one is pleasure. And this is very simple. It's very straightforward. You go for your pleasure in everything that you do. So, and that can include something measurable. Like, find pleasure in everything. Even if you're really feeling pain, really feel the pain. Like, I feel my body. You just have the intention of connecting to your pleasure. Just willingness and intention is incredibly powerful. So that could be sexual pleasure. That could be the pleasure of getting on the subway and laughing at the fact that, you know, 2 vagrants came in at the same time to say the same spiel, and one had to, you know, concede to the other, or the fact that you like your red hat for the day, whatever that is. Then when you're in your pleasure, you can't help but discover your passion, because we're passionate about what brings us pleasure. And in the passion is your horsepower. It's your charge. It's the energy. It's the thing. It's the gas that drives this vehicle that is your body on this planet. When you're in your passion, you automatically discover your purpose, because from the place of pleasure and passion, you will be living what you are supposed to be doing. And you can surrender to that. So you don't have to work hard and then you die, or save up to go on a vacation where you'll experience your pleasure at some point after you get a break from MTV. It doesn't happen that way, because if you're not in a pleasure practice as a way of life, then when you go on vacation, you work hard at your vacation and you're stressed out trying to get everywhere on time and this and that, and it's not pleasurable. So when you're in your purpose, which comes from following your pleasure and following your passion, you automatically attract possibility and prosperity. And it's a beautiful place to be, because you can just be standing in line at the grocery store and you think of something and someone behind you is going to be speaking of it. Or you're going to think of it and someone's going to pick up the phone and call you. You will, and I'm sure you've experienced this, Rosangel, you would be amazed at how powerful telepathy and the law of attraction can be when you're simply in your pleasure and passion and purpose. And then when we attract prosperity, so we say yes to possibility and we attract prosperity, we often hit what I call the resistance, because collectively, we're not just working with our individual challenges. We have a collective unconscious that's really stuck in negativity and polarizing and judgment. And so how do you say yes? Like, what usually happens is we get so excited because we just conjured something amazing. Oh, my gosh, that's so great. And then you witness, I just conjured something amazing. Oh, my gosh, that's so great. And then you go, oh, I got to shut it down. I got to shut it down, because you get afraid to be seen there by yourself and by others. It's an unconscious thing. And then you try to go back to constricting, because expanding was so scary. So how do you stay open so you can digest your good and have more? Like Layla said on the panel last night, the gold starts to happen. How do you scoop that out and add it to the rest of the body so you don't feel flooded with gold? So you play. And I know you're very good at this. You dance. You write about it, you blog about it, you do a radio show about it, you invite your friends, and you can talk, and there's pleasure in inviting your friends to talk about the pain, to talk about the challenge, to talk about the story. And then the last one is practice. You do it all over again all day long. You stay vigilant about your pleasure practice, and you keep it up, and you create a little pleasure practice for yourself. And if you forget any of them, the most important is just start by going with your pleasure, because that and I mean organic pleasure. I'm not talking about hedonistic pleasure. This does not mean you go out and you eat as much chocolate as you want and you fuck anybody you want. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about source. So it's connected to a spiritual energy, and you'll know that the more that you play with it. But that's it. So the 7 Ps is my gift to you and the audience right now, to play with how you can show up in your life truly in your authentic pleasure. And that can be in any feeling or emotion that you're having.
I really love that. And you know, a couple of things that came to mind as I was listening to you was a gentleman in the audience yesterday, how he was impacted when he heard one of the goddesses say, it's okay, like, where she was referring to someone who felt jealous, and just when that person was just with that feeling, like, to be with the feelings that don't feel so comfortable. And I think that was a key moment for me that led to my the beginning of my Kundalini awakening, was that acknowledgement, like, I can't continue to run away from pain or things that don't look good or mask it. Like, if they don't affect me, they do. I'm okay. Like, I'm a human being. I can feel these things. Like, I can feel angry. There might be rage in my heart. It's okay. This is what I feel right now. Let me breathe into it. Let me feel it. Let me experience it. Let me be with it. Let me allow it to leave me. And
absolutely. And I'm just now learning that. I'm getting freed up. I'm even conjuring and orchestrating people into my life that are reminding me of that. Even you today saying, that acknowledgement really touched me, where you said wherever Kiela is, you're going to get authentic Kiela. That from you, my sister, that I really feel connected with, saying that to me, 2 or more gathered in Spirit's name, with us witnessing each other and the audience witnessing, you anchored that even more for me, that who I am is necessary, impactful, important. And, I spent so much of my life before trying to make other people comfortable with my bigness and my, all these subtle power. And the truth is they really do want permission to be that for themselves. And it starts with me being able to do that for me. And, for the difference for me was before I was very ungrounded. And so this bigness came off sometimes as uncentered. And that could be scary for me, and that could be scary for other people. So now that I've learned how to align and I do my practice, now I don't have to apologize anymore. And I didn't have to apologize in the first place. But if I was looking for some constructive criticism for myself, I corrected that. I corrected it by lining myself up. So I refuse to let anybody talk me down, because I think it was Marilyn Monroe. She said, well-behaved women never made history. And I think somebody else, I forgot who said it, but they said, if you don't have naysayers, you're not doing something right. And they were talking about public figures. So the next step for me, I'm finding, is to be okay with people who are uncomfortable with me being okay. And letting that...
And that is, no, I was going to say that that's definitely a journey in and of itself to get to that point, because it's interesting. Some people who know me very privately know this about me, that I have probably attracted the biggest lions in my life consistently, whether they're from childhood to family to work, people who react very violently in their expression, and I don't mean like hitting me. I'm just mean like
I know exactly what you mean.
Where with something that I'm doing it becomes very threatening. For a long time, I was taking that as a victim consciousness type of thing. Like what was me? Why do I keep affecting people this way? And then when you take some time, like you and I have had a lot of time to reflect, and we've made it in our schedule. We had to, this awakening created that and pushed us there. You start to realize like it is a bigness that has always been within me, that is within each and every one of us, and we need to just figure out this bigness, how does it get channeled in a way where I'm happy and everyone else is happy. And for you, I see your bigness shine when you're on stage. You're authentic, lit up, Kiela. When you're holding the panels, you're in your pleasure. Like you just light up like that light bulb, like the little light on the planet. This is you. I feel like I'm in my pleasure when I'm doing a show like Cafecito Break, when I'm dancing, and I'm allowing just the spirit to move with my body. That to me, that's one of my ultimate pleasures. It feels good, and I can be big there. God bless you. And I can be big there. And it was interesting because you saw...
But Rosangel, I want to invite you to know that you can be... So I love what you just said, and I'm going to add to it. So what you just said, and I want to invite you that it doesn't have to be in these appropriate places that you can be big. So, but I like what you said. You said, how can I be big in a way that works for me and others? That is, for me, I feel that's a very appropriate question, as long as it doesn't... minimize who we are. So I know you're asking it in a loving way because you have compassion. And so I feel you coming from the right place, but I just wanted to say I want to invite you and anyone else listening to know that you don't have to look for the places you can be big. You might want to start there, but the reality is you get to be who you are on and off the stage. And that's another thing I'm passionate about when I teach my sacred sensuality cabaret classes, is I tell people, I want to help you open up the box and free the lines and be, sorry, I'm getting so excited about what I'm saying. I'm short-circuiting, and I know we're almost at time, so I'm trying to make it quick. Basically, where the line between on and off stage doesn't exist anymore. And the thing is people think when you go on stage you put something on, and put on a show. No, the reality is, and this is what you were talking about, referencing before, is that you reveal something, you take something off. You become vulnerable and you are private in public. And that's really what's at the root, I think, of all this pleasure revolution and such, is that we are so thirsty to be who we are all the time. So I want to invite you to know that bigness is appropriate all the time. Yes, you get to play with how you manage it, get masterful at it. But it's not something that gets to be in this compartment or that compartment, but then gets shut down, as you and I know, because that's what made us so sick.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like where, it's that expression, allowing that expression and being authentic with it. When I was referring to, for example, the way you light up on stage and the way Cafecito and me dancing work for me, I see these as rituals. Like we're doing something in the background to prepare so that we can be in a public space, more private, and revealing ourselves. And so that is what I meant by that.
Hello, you've reached Kiela with Pleasure Your World and Kiela's Cabaret.
We just lost Kiela. Let's see if we could get her back. Let's try to dial her in one more time. This is what happens when you
Hello,
go live.
you've reached Kiela with Pleasure Your World and Kiela's Cabaret.
I love her. I love her machine message. It's great. But we're almost out of time, so maybe this happened. Everything happens for a reason. I wanted to read because it seems very appropriate to read a quote by Marianne Williamson. So this will be the Azuquita Pal Café reflection of the day. And it's our deepest fear. Kiela and I spoke about this a lot today. Your bignesses, this is what we were just talking about. So before her phone dropped, we were talking about the goal is to be your bigness wherever you are. And yes, so I would like to read our deepest fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most brightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people will not feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us. It is in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So, just sitting here in reflection and letting that sink in. For those who want to catch up with Kiela, there will be links at the summary page of our show. I would like to give a love shout to all the beautiful goddesses that I shared the panel with yesterday. Thank you, Kiela Mellott, for organizing the Pleasure Research Panel. And I'd like to give a love shout to Melody Cures and Fab Bliss and Layla Martin, beautiful goddesses. It was so electrifying to be sharing the night with you. And also a love shout to everyone who showed up and shared in our beautiful, lively discussion. And if for those who are interested in what's coming up with Kiela, on Sunday, March 23rd at 4 p.m., you could check her out at the New Life Expo for a sexuality and sensuality panel. And just to remind you that I've got a tribal shamanic sound and journey class coming up this Friday with Irma Star Spirit and Judith Kuban. That's March 21st, Tribal Equinox. I will put the link on the summary page as well, so you can check that out. Register by email because space is limited. And March 24th, 9 p.m. will be the premiere of my new show at night called Confessions of an Awakening Woman, where things like the subjects that we've been speaking about on Cafecito Break Monday mornings the last couple of weeks will be more of a discussion. On nighttime will be more of an uncensored expression for the nighttime audience. Well, guys, that is all for today. I am going to wrap up the show. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for your love. Another love shout to Match My Spirit. We love you, Naini. A shout out to Orly Amore. A shout out to NewYorkHolistic.com. A shout out to Awakening New York. All these beautiful people. And Y7 Yoga in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. There's so many people that we need to acknowledge. And we're grateful for it. So thank you, Alex. Thank you, Ruthie. I love you, and thank you, Kiela, for being with us. Many, many blessings to you. Have a great week, and we will be with you next week. Tune in 11 a.m. Monday mornings for a Cafecito break with us. Thank you guys for listening. I love you. Have a great, great week.